part of such an interesting and remarkable faculty. I've also had the privilege of working in some capacity with all of the writers and artists that you'll see take the stage tonight. And because of that, I know that you're in for a treat. This is a dynamic, eccentric, and wonderful class. They've faced incredible challenges, starting as they did during COVID. Indeed, many of them spent some months, sometimes as long as a year, taking classes by Zoom and communicating with one another and with their professors by way of screens. That they not only persisted, but came out of the experience with vibrant, original, and exciting work is testament to how important and how necessary art making is to them. The students gathered here have made a brave choice. They've chosen art. And they understand that both the life and the health of our culture is bound inextricably to its art. It's a choice that, no matter what your profession or your day job ends up being, will make your life richer and will make you happier. It's one that will comfort you during difficult times and fulfill you in all times. Language, when used artistically, is not just a simple tool, not just something to accomplish a goal or communicate a fact, but something that we can inhabit, something alive. It's a place as necessary and real for us as the physical spaces of the world. The students graduating today have made the decision to consciously dwell in and within words, to live in words and with an awareness of them. And yet this attention to language does not preclude an attention to the world at large. A commitment to language is also a commitment to the way that human breath sounds in words, to the movement of lips and mouths that form words. It's an acknowledgement that words matter not just as words, but that language has a relationship to the real, be that relationship mimetic or reflexive or intensive or affective. We dwell in language, and language matters, but it is the very humanness of language that matters most. The showcase also previews the 2022 NextWords Reading Series, an anthology publication produced by CalArts, the CalArts MFA and Creative Writing Program, and featuring its graduating students. This year's NextWords Reading Series will be held as one free, open to the public event at the Poetic Research Bureau on Sunday, May 15th from 2 to 6 p.m. Please join us for that as well if you can. Following tonight's showcase, there will be a reception with food and an open bar where this year's NextWords anthology, entitled Of Lust Rubber, will be available for purchase, featuring a selection of poetry, fiction, nonfiction, and genre-fluid works. The showcase and anthology offer a range of experiences and new literary works that are uniquely CalArts, the result of the Creative Writing Program's evolving explorations alongside and across film, video, photography, music, performance, and visual arts. And now, without further ado, please join me in welcoming our first reader, Aika Sargats.
Hi, how's everyone doing? Can we please get a round of applause for the faculty who just did that? She's not here today, but I especially want to thank my mentor, Tisa Bryant, and everybody who's tuning in. I love you very much. And to my dear friend and family who's here, Dr. Maria Young. I did it. So, it's going to kick it off. It's one continuous read. Every dawn, I crave some cum, a siren to my nose, making me care for you. Not by force or mistake, just you, a body with me, be body on mine, that angels in me, or I could watch. Every feeling of evergreen is not always a go. Because what could heal me one day could hurt me the next, and scar I do delight some around my neck. To deflower or de-hurt me, afterwards, hold me, so I can be held and beholden, limb by limb, find some buzzing protection against atoning lips. When I say I want more candor, I really mean you. I greet the velvet to kiss your night, my unguent gold, moon palpitating warmth upon my fleshy enunciations. Messenger. The messenger is the voice presence occupying the space, voice presence occupying the time between. Teresa Hakim Cha. And if I am silenced, why do I have to break it? Can I break it in the parenthetical, or must I always moan in the shattering? Silence is the invention of the hearing, said Ilya Kaminsky. So what's that over there, breathing in the dark? I go to bed and wake up in the kitchen. I lose hair to find clever ways to explain, I love you, you're late, I need to go home. Pedro Kahule wrote, beyond the drum insides of this body, there is somewhere in the out of memory, a noise, a compounded pang of heaviness. I'm trying to transcribe the noise, but the changes are hard to bear. And I want a boat. Is that wild? For now, I live in a state that doesn't touch a sea, so every day I reach for ways to feel the ocean purr. Sometimes I imagine myself drifting down the Wissahickon on a boat I could call my own, a device that would render me captain or unsinkable. Once a new friend, now good friend, who's here, called me heart smart. I had no idea what she meant. Maybe she was talking about my water. So I asked her and she said, oh, by that I just mean you don't use words for words' sake, like all the sinews of the world are connected for you. I think she was talking about my water. Last week, I dreamt about my cousins again. We were at a beach in the Philippines swimming together, and on our flight back home, I was separated from them, a veil between our cabinets that I couldn't cross. I wailed and reached and woke to pillows puddled with my tears, crying out again, when will I see them again? I want a boat that is not wild, knowing how my blood comes from the water of salt river beds and southeast lagoons, how my tides rise whenever she calls me my moon. Every day I have to feel the ocean purr. I have to feel her pulsating into wholeness again to become unsinkable, like the sea. Audio of the human urge to animal, and the animal urge to divine, and to divine is what? Composure? Decompose me into God bits and let me finger two lips on a bed of grass in a field at last light. Publicly and coming for me and for you, I crave. And I want teeth sunken into my wordless wet, say none, more hand and throat, shoulder, suck there, light me up, besiege my brace, befuddle my wounded and bordered arms here. I need to flood. I need to dip, I need to rest and sleep, lap dance into my screams like a requiem for my very living body, alive. And flesh, remember, desiderata, before the sun sets, I must imperfect my perfect, to lay me down. Lay me down until I fraction no more. There is an emphatic flesh to whoever you are, wanna be, so let it be, from Ralph Lemon's Scaffold Room. Torque. Wherein I do become fine, and I, a brass bucket of dread, desequester a blue butterfly, as the propulsive becoming its own mouth, mine, wherein a wolf could eat me one day, and I don't know, I would be fine. Wherein the flesh becomes skin, becomes me, becomes flesh, becomes me skin, wherein I text you, what you doing, how you do, my ube yam, wherein you text me, not much is chilling you, when I know you not just chilling, wherein I am, wherein I still baked a pie for two being you, wherein I still saved a really big piece for me still. Wherein the dupe deludes a deluge, and honeydew ate the bear, wherein I guess I exist, the wolf wearing a whale, becoming urgent wailing, beckoning, wherein my overture and rumpus overcome any noise of self-loathing, with which we, fecund, could have, but we really didn't. Not yet. So we still, not much, just chilling, wherein the me skin becomes flesh, becomes me, becoming the fist and grip and every fucking past blow that had forgotten about me. Wherein I still forget about them sometimes, while remembering both and the forgotten. Wherein I'm still remembering you all the time, and do you remember me? Wherein I do listen, so you listen to my every diction of escape and deliverance, stroke my every umbra. I would like what I want, and what I want, I could love. Wherein I want what I could love, wherein I think you could too, and butterfly, wherein you didn't, so I didn't, and you won't, so I haven't, not yet. Wherein I can't, but I still did. wherein I'm both anding my way through the deluge distilled that deludes any dupe or dread, any suffering from any chrysalis or trauma or pain is not the only thing that determines my present reskin. Wherein the present determines what is next. Historicity, healing, but cannot yet determine what's now. My urgent, so becoming becomes a mare, becomes a whale, again me, again the whale, unbeknownst becomes beknown, beckoning, howling to itself, I am okay. To me, wherein becoming becomes a wishful, I am okay. Wishfully, I choose to look at the horizon, with my eyes now becoming the sun, wherein the sun becomes my eyes now, looking back at me, looking at you, the sea, my God, the sea, the urgent becoming a blue whale again, becoming itself a wolf, the knowing, wearing the known, my propulsion, my stammer, my skin, a hot current begging to swell. And the sound of the sound of the sound of Una Salahat by Hot Dog, sounding at a beach below the setting sun. But the beach is inside, a beach inside my head, inside my calves, tucked underneath my eyelids, my heart too floating at the juncture between tip and finger. Somewhere at mid-tide, there is red, and there is orange, they are warm, and there is blue. That is night. Tonight. There is also tonight. A sea pouring out of my ears, motioning as a whirring body of blue surrounding me. And afterwards, there is tomorrow, in us at high tide with fullest emotion, drenched in recalcitrant light. Thank you. And up next is QH.
I'm going to read my essay from the class of feminist poetics. Memories as a stone. Memories always give me a stone. The stone sometimes rolls all over my mind and also is stuck in my mind. Whatever it does, it always has its own weight. Memories have their own weight. I had long been hoping to lose weight. I wanted to be slim and light, as if there was nothing behind me and nothing holding me back. However, I never could. I'm still holding my weight. I felt my fat around my belly as the stones on my feet. It seemed not to be gone forever. Now I guess I can embrace it as a part of my life. I think I should get used to living with it, but it still weighs. Still, I feel the weight on my body here. How in the world can I get used to it? I bend over and pick up a pen on the ground. While bending over, I feel my blood going to my head. The blood circulates the memory. Again, I bend over and pick up a stone. My blood circulates with weight. My blood carries the stones. Some blood flows over the memory of blaming myself for my past. Why did I do that? Was it the best thing that I could have done at that moment? How could I do that? I should not have done that. I should have tried more than that. While the blood is circulating, the questions are cast towards me. I'm stoned. I have no way to get away from them. Unless I want to die, my blood must keep circulate, must keep carrying those stones. It has always been difficult to lose weight in my life. One stone draws another stone. Stones gather their friends. This is how the blood of the past works. I become surrounded by all the stones in a minute. After being surrounded, I make the cave with the stones this time. By the cave that I made by myself, I cannot see the present any longer. I get to be stuck there. In the cave, the stones are just standing by me. They tell me nothing. They don't even have any expressions, just standing by me and watching me. I go to them. I don't want to see you. I don't need you. I want you to leave. Still just standing. Sometimes I feel like I can't pass by them, ignore them, and be free from them. However, as always, I go back to them. They are like gravity in my world. The more I'm trying to get out of them, the more I draw closer to them. Not all the stones are like this. Some are like sweet and bitter gum. The more I chew them, the more they lose their sweetness, and it turns into a bitter bowl in my mouth. After all, it got to be solid so that they could not move to another place with one step further anymore. The bowl which I cannot play with anymore. I might have dreamed myself as a forest since I was a child. Green leaves, colorful branches, singing birds, limitless blue sky, hiding reptiles, running squirrels, sneaky snakes, and walking human. But now I feel like I'm Cory. Gray and broken stones, floating dust, dry ground, ashy sky, nowhere seeming an exit, and timeless. I cannot say I like this space, but I also cannot deny this place where I stand on. I keep quarrying stones here. I kept quarrying stones there. This seems endless. I cannot imagine what those stones will be like. My back is becoming bent. My back is getting painful. My head cannot watch the sky anymore. My blood goes only to my head. My blood gathers more stones into my head. I feel like all those stones are going to be a tombstone next by my death, showing nothing. At the moment, the one sharp line all of a sudden penetrates the solid stone, seeming not to break forever. The solid stone changing into myriads of solid pieces. Another sharp line does the same onto these solid pieces. All the pieces of the stone have their different shapes. They have a trace marked by ink, which the sharp line had. The ink can be water for the dust in my quarry. Even though I'm amidst the quarry, I can still relieve my thirst, at least, with this ink. The strokes will be the branches of the forest in my quarry. The chalk stones with the strokes won't be stuck anymore. They will flow with my blood like a river. Perhaps this is how I get used to my weight in my life. Thank you. Our next is Erin Denny.
How's everyone doing? All right. I'm going to be reading some poems. I just want to say I'm very grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to have all of you here too. All right. All my papers are folded. I didn't plan for this. The social butterfly. Friendly love embraces vigor, a nuptial of oil and vinegar. Butterfly, butterfly, do you know what they lie, butterfly? Everyone comes to you for your crisis. You listen, you ask questions, and try your best to understand through the thoughts and fading their brains like locust lice. Some you can never relate to because of barriers built by big industries. Some resonate you with like an empire destiny tuning forward. You zoom out from macro to micro, searching for the most compassionate interlopers of comfort and console. Jokes on, jokes off. Steam isn't a finality, just a cross stitch in the chain lock. Realign, rearrange the powers that be, and let action surmise the surprises of confiding, except the weight of cautionary stationary. The blanket of misery being endured pushes prickles into ripples of the rude imaginary. Anxiety gathering dust, brief negotiating peace, no, a ceasefire. Inflamed and enraged, yet overwhelmed by the communication through satellites, butterfly, you were built for flowers, not the dead air of space. After answering every call to action, you release a sigh for the worry of factions, escalating, elevating, destabilizing. You sit with ears that wish they could cry. You are alone in a box, arrogant with four corners. You disassociate with reality for just a second, just a millisecond. No one will think less of you. To be bitter. In a house, a home, a soul begins to whistle. The air between their lips rush inward. A sound, long sound resonates and hyperbolates. A pause and a scan of the room of the soul. The clock reads 15 past 16. Early, the soul beckons. And an outward whisk extrapolates the soul of the room. Soon, the soul floats beyond the ceiling and roof tile, upward and onward, as the room no longer has the need of lips or arms or weight of walking. Touch becomes numb to itself. The soul floats and boasts of its ability to fly, humanity's most arrogant triumph. As now the clouds become a new soil, as the earth becomes yesterday's photograph. The soul pops up, out and up into the liminal land that is the sky. The soul sees shapes and patterns and writings and good tidings that disappear, reappear, while ascension continues with no fear. Heavenly real estate that does not instigate the pearly gates of damnation. Yet it is so late as the soul passes to a new nation of continual degradation of life's necessities. The air thins, the water rains through the clouds, the sun warmth becomes. The soul awakens from a high-flying, two-timing adventure of this lifetime, only to be repeated next weekend. Always cut off before reaching the stars, just past inoculation, but no unusual hallucinations, no more, no less. Yet as the instant coffee steams like a heat-sensitive mugshot, a leftover tear glides across the curvature and wisdom of the cheek and ripples the cup of necessary energy. The salt actually pairs with the bitterness. I don't know. 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 I don't. No, I don't know. 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 I do not know. I do not know. I do not. No, I do not know. I do not know. I do not know. I do not know. I do not. No, I do not know. I do not know. I decay, 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 I. Information, disarray, knowledge, intuitive decision, hopefully, kindred. All right, this is the last one. Peter. The pier was much larger in person than grandmother's pictures made it seem like. The dark metal skeletal support beams rose from the hazy marine water with standoffish pride. The air was cold, bitter, yet comforting. With squinted eyes, it was almost possible to make out either side of the pier. It extended well over a mile each way from the center. This was not helped by the fog. It acts shy, only gives sight and form when you notice it. Yet as soon as you notice it, it refuses to be remembered. When given the chance, however, it will gladly envelop you whole. My tongue swirled in my mouth with a mixture of airy seawater and sand. I noticed feebly that I could no longer see the beach and umbrellas and overpriced gift shops. How long had I been walking? My mind sauntered for familiarity. I could no longer see the shore behind me nor anything noticeable in front of me. I could still hear the waves crashing. My senses were exhausting and my wits were on vacation. I became disoriented. Was it this way forward or back? Where did all the people go? I must choose a direction. Will it be my salvation or drifting farther than I've ever been? The laughter of the seagulls harmonized with my panic. As if all things are equal, I just need to choose a direction on the pier and stick with it. I will be somewhere eventually, and this will all be the past. With each breath, I add to the collective fog. My heart beats fiercely without you. All right, next up is Jen Danilo.
Hi. First and foremost, I want to thank my mentor, Casey, for supporting me over the last 3 years, and Janet Sarbanes for also supporting me over the last 3 years. Okay. There you go. Okay. I'm going to move between poetry and prose. Fervor Dream. Nana stirred our deviation into honeysuckle time. It began as soon as she heard the breath of the setting sun. We reorganized ourselves accordingly. The thread of our everyday choreography split, refracted. We danced our way into a different order together. She trudged through the front door and waited beneath the looming fruit trees her sister planted for her many years ago, swaying through the yard until she met the edge of the road, which wasn't exactly a river. She was predisposed to listening for the sounds of wounded animals, which inspired long sonic meditations during which her feet became ears. Grandmother and I searched for fallen fruit beneath the avocado tree during Nana's momentary absence. Every now and then we'd touch our ears to the ground and listen for her footsteps. We didn't know where she went. She didn't want to be found. We didn't ask because we knew that deformation was one of the conditions of our inevitable reconvening. With bulbous avocados in hand, we moved beneath the night-blooming jasmine tree at the far end of the yard and inhaled each other's songs. A swarm of fleshy ivory tunnels protruded from pedestals and spread outward into stellar apertures. I picked a little flower and pushed the open end into my ear. Its choir unhinged my jaw. Honey seeped from my grandmother's tear ducts into a hole in the earth. We dipped our fingertips into the pool and held out our hands for each other to taste. I held the flower I picked up to her lips and she blew out ghostly tufts, dandelion pathos. When Nana returned, we noticed a pigeon resting between her right palm and her hip. How did she know how to hold wounded birds with such astonishing precision? Grandmother and I danced our way into our usual positions. I moved to get a glimpse of the pigeon while blowing into the aperture of another jasmine flower, while she opened the door for Nana and the bird. The pigeon cooed, sounded trills. Nana's attunement to her predisposition and her devotion to these evening walks necessitated our reorganization. Without hesitation, she walked into the kitchen, turned around, curled her sturdy, tender fingers around the handle carved into the skewed wooden door and slid it shut. Nobody taught me how to dance behind a closed door. I slid back into the living room and hummed a sister rhythm. I knew I wasn't supposed to interrupt Nana while she was with an injured bird, so I calculated accompaniment, keeping an ear out for the pigeon's sweet cooing. When a sound finally made its way into my ear, I ran toward the kitchen, craving enigmatic anomaly. Nana left the door to the kitchen ajar. A fissure in space summoned loudly. Come, play. I leaned into the space between the door and the frame. My eyes caught a glimpse of her tired leather sandals and her beautifully weathered legs. I noticed that the little door to the metal birdcage with the sky blue plastic bottom was unhinged. I froze when I laid eyes on the scene. Nana was cradling the pigeon in one hand and stroking its back with the other, while sounding a slow and unintelligible murmur. Her tongue trilled time, and mine unfurled, grew outward, touched hers and proliferated, setting a precedent for a lifetime of efflorescent want for sound. If I retrace your murmur with my fingertips and rub its edges till it blurs, I can hear it, sonically. Whispering to the festering wound inflicted while cutting us in two, then take this night blooming jasmine and rub its buttery petals around on my tongue. I heard a crow cawing a rhythm this morning and remembered your embrace. I wet my teeth, opened my mouth, and sounded new growth through a proliferate jaw. Now we can revel in new thingness, incite shift, swerve, ensemble, glide the angular tips of our wings along the darkest parts of the night sea, cutting soft slits into saliva with feathers, cartilage, and bone. Flocking makes it possible to lean into the sharpest pain of forgetting. Just below the surface is the swell of sonic detritus. Question: whose wet mouth is this? Whose want for sound? Billowing recollections in the throat gargle with the back of the tongue, expand chest, push air into belly and contract, push tongue to the top of the throat, cry out in pelagic shearwater. We only sing at night when we can salvage the flock of the gullfire's cannon. This will be my last. Massive articulated black cloud of naked water gesture. Inhale the flock. Exhale the swerve. What is flight, if not the lyrical synthesization of the eyes, lips, and breath? Take notes, trace our movements, preserve memories of the ways in which we intersect each other's paths, congregate and celebrate time and time again. Of course, my capacity to find my way back to you remains, but our devotion to refusal sends you far enough away that it becomes far too easy to forget. Our constant reorientation reveals the headless movement at the heart of every seemingly disparate, independent act. The general strike, our devotion to one another, to life lived in perpetual motion. When the flock with the mask inevitably comes undone, pigeon's milk will develop in newly formed glands in our throats. When we cross paths in the city, we'll take turns plunging our heads into each other's mouths, painfully thirsty for a long, slow drink. Tell me, what do you taste? Throat lined with the foul residue of another way of life lived without a name. Lick the air and follow the masting, discern, leave trails of half-eaten seeds. I will hold out my palm in flight, filled with promise, until the skins that keep us from each other swell and slip off the bone, revealing silver meter skeletons. Every time this happens, our necks will slip back. Our skulls will dangle from our spines in the absence of a butcher, and 100 flagellants will spurt from our throats in rapid succession. You will forget this, but you are not necessarily misremembered. Thank you. Next up, we have Rosa. Great.
Hello, everyone. Rosa Angelina Beltran. It's really an honor to be here and share this reading with my colleagues and classmates. I want to thank all of the faculty, especially my beautiful mentor, Gabrielle Seville, for guiding me and for her compassionate teaching during my time at CalArts. I will share some of my thesis project today. My thesis is called Restos, Remains. It is a poetry memoir. Go back and forth in different sections. Restos Remains is a collection of poems based on the excavation of personal journals begun during the first COVID-19 shelter-in-place order in Los Angeles in March of 2020. Ahora. What does it mean to encounter a self? Selves. ¿Qué significa encontrar a una ser? Seres. I'm seared. I'm so seared. No, I'm scared of what I'll find, of what will find me, of what it's like to know you, of writing what I know. You existed even when you felt not real and wrote. Ahora, even more. And to write what happened long ago makes it real. Ahora. Are we digging a well or a grave? Y ahora, y ahora, y ahora, y ahora. It's not my story to tell. A brother. Tú, la mejor de todas. A father figure. Eres yo en versión mejorada. A mother. Nobody wants to hear your story, so we use silence. A stranger. Growing up, I often heard from my mom and tias about a family curse. And you grew up believing that if you could blow away all the seeds in a single breath, your wish would come true. And that wishes were for impractical types of people, and that sunflower seeds con sal y limón were for, I said, shh. I said, I don't want to talk about it, because if I talk about it, it's destiny. Remembering. I remember Mama Lina. I remember the house in Cuquillo. I remember the house in Tlaquepaque. I remember the house in Pico Rivera. I remember the apartment in Ontario, in El Rancho Menor. I remember the complex in San Bernardino, where my brother was almost shot. I remember the house in Ontario on Pleasant Street. Gargoyles, Rue Fuge, Quinceañera. I remember the other house in Ontario on Fern Street. Broken glass, garage parties. I remember the other house in Ontario on Maple Street. Haunted, invisible man, sober. I almost remember. If I write everything down, maybe I can trick my body into remembering. This is from a section called Genesis Stories. Heartbeat, a sound, like Tupperware tapping on wood. Life, a sound, like the honest charisma of wolves. Birth, a sound, like lunged children truths wailing in desert. Womb, a sound, like punctured chorus of muscles tightening. Firstborn, a sound, like scalpel releasing blood from blue belly. Virgin, a sound, like first century canticles silenced. Oracle, a sound, like heathen Ouija board hissing maternal, a sound, like brethren expelled from history as breaths, progeny, a sound, like poverty poetry fleshed out as song. Llorona, a sound, like ghost finding body to wear. Parto, a sound, like pungent orgasm backwards. Love child, a sound, like typewriter or heartbreak hell flames cracking psyche until another birth. Maybe more. Last section. January 1st, 2009. And I'm sorry, I'm not the woman you thought I'd be. And this is from the section towards the end of the book called Somewhere in There We Told. So we never told T he hadn't earned it. C was our first. We planned it. Winter break, hotel room, Long Beach, white sheets, blood tub, mother blessings. That was early college, first winter break. Telling him was after college, years after we had broken up. Las palabras importantes que aprendí en Guadalajara en el año 2005. The important words I learned in Guadalajara in the year 2005. Beneplácito, casillero, acatar, amortiguar, postergar, apaciguar, sutil, burdo, letrina, afán, minucioso, disparates, vocación, complot, cuestionar, desalentador, restricción, nexe, maestría, afán, jarra, no el recipiente, barco, chafés, abrir, bachillerato, efímero, cátedra, equivaler, divulgar, plasmado, divagar, sobornar, doctorado, acoplar, consanguínea, asimilar, anaquel, descabellado, pisar el callo, montonero, chacal, fresón, echar un rol, manchar, mamar, machín, cañón, caldar, un buen, gandalla, lacra, ajarando, ajarar. In Mexico, we couldn't tell anybody. No room for more grief. Ya no quiero hablar. I no longer want to speak. Ya no quiero decir amén. I no longer want to say amen. Ya no quiero saber. I no longer want to know. Conocimiento mudo busco. Mute, knowing, I seek. El sonido de huesos, the sound of bones. Huecos naciendo. Hollow, being birthed. Quiero ya nada. más que sentir el calor del viento en el vientre. I want nothing but to feel the warmth of the wind on my womb. Mutely, I pray, open this tomb to forage and conduct your divination. Thank you. And next up is Anthony Garcia.
Oh God, I can't remember how to use the microphone. I drank for the first time in years. Normally, I dismiss such collections of thought and memory as the tapestry of my mind, trying to mend frayed edges between my long hours of wakefulness. But I felt this was not the case that night. I was in a forest at the edge of a lake. I could not make out what kind of trees they were, or if they were trees at all, but just the same, my mind knew it was a forest just as my mind knows I stand before you all in this theater. I don't know why, but it also felt familiar, even though the trees had died years ago. There were 3 stones. One was carved into a long, flat surface that resembled a poorly assembled table, and the other 2 seemed to be carved into the form of chairs, though one was for something much larger than a person. And the trees, if they could be called such, felt uniform, sterile. The lake had water so clear that if I had ventured out onto it, I would have been wading knee-deep through stars. I find myself seated in the smaller of the chairs when something approached from the trees. It held the form of a person. It had a flowing red robe, which seemed to bleed down into the roots of the trees. The flowing sleeves leaked a viscous crimson fluid down onto the table and chair as it sat down across from me. The form it held was beautiful, but I can't remember a single detail of it except for its eyes. As black as the space between the stars, and then suddenly the phases of the moon passed over each faster than I could keep track of. This is an old draft. Love that. Giving them a shifting gray metallic quality that was better in the new draft. Love writing. Try that again. Its lips didn't move as it spoke in 1,000 voices. All of them felt like mine, but none of which were mine. Not many managed to find me. What do you see when you look out beyond what is known? The form said. It gestured toward a forest that was no longer there, just darkness left in its place. I answered nothing, just the darkness, what was once forest. It smiled. Your fear is not based on what you see, but what you thought you saw. So is that that bar, the one off 95 before Buckwell drinks? Yeah, the one with the weird clean product smell? Yeah, that's the one. So I'm there waiting for my friend, kind of friend who can never be early, say his fucking life. When this old guy, who I think been eyeing me since I first sat down, walked over to me, just walks over to me and tells me, get this. He tells me, you buy me a beer? I'll tell you a story. So of course I look him up and down, creepy old dude. I look down at my watch. I think it's been dead 5 years. Yes, I know I need a new one. It's near an 8. My friend said he'd be there at 7. I figured, hell, I got an hour to kill. Got to take the paper clip off. Raise my hand, make eye contact with the bartender, nice guy, hell he's at. And when the bartender comes over, I tell him, get him any beer he wants, put it on my tab. Now, the old guy's eyes widen 3 times like he's the fucking Grinch or something. He orders some gross sounding IPA. Can't understand how people drink that shit. He starts in the story like this. There's no rest stops between Amarillo and Austin. It's graveyards. Now, I walked a lot of years OTR, making my way up and down the east side of the Rockies, sometimes even past them, not often. It's about 10, 15 years ago, give or take. The little red clock tipped over the new day. There's no moon now, so that byway or highway, whatever the hell, starts shit staying on God's drawers. And I needed to relieve myself. Anyway, I'm out there, driving that wide, nothing between west, east, north, and south. When I hit that long patch of road in North Texas. Normally I'm driving during the day. There was some logistics problems, some eggheads put the wrong symbol in the wrong spreadsheet or whatever the fuck. And I ended up with a 6-hour delay. Unpaid. Can you believe that?
Honest to God, how they get away with that shit, I will never know. That's what I get for being based in Florida. Right to work, more like right to fuck off and I'll pay rent, am I right? At any rate, except the one I'm getting paid, that is, I'm out there deep into the snow in the morning, what have you. I see a turnoff. First rest stop I've seen since the borderline, thank the Lord. I start slowing down, then I realized nothing patch of dirt in the headstone. Now, I wasn't much of a religious man at the time. Hell, the only thing I thought God was good for was keeping radio stations even going in those long stretches of fuck all. Even then, I knew better than the shit on the grave. So I pulled off at the next one, same deal, rest stop, gravestone, wooden cross, little flower deals. Again and again, I must have stopped 6 times. Every time I felt that dried beef going wet, if you know what I mean. I said, I do not. Just looked at me. So I pull off one last time and pray. Same rest stop sign, except there ain't no gravestone, ain't no wooden cross, ain't no nothing except dirt rocks got in Texas. Now I'll learn y'all something. Always make sure those rocks don't make no pattern or circle or box or whatever the fuck people do with stones off goddamn highway. Because I didn't think twice, that is, not reading the unwritten signs and just kind of dropped my britches and dug my ditches, you understand? And I'm finishing up. And I hear something off in the bushes, the trees. It's a call or a whisper. Not a good one, or friendly. Couldn't make out the words, but I do know a pissed off tone when I hear one, and this one let me know I've done one thing only. I fucked up. So I'll ask back to my truck, grab the hold, don't lie, don't collect $200. I'm looking outside, night rustling. I don't know, that's an old guy. It's gonna be a common theme in all my readings. First time I've heard. I'm looking out, and I rustle, my goddamn headlights start flickering on spook light. One of those flashes, I could see them. A dozen or so figures. Well, it looked like figures, like those little figurines, you know, the ones they put on top of wedding cakes. Except instead of white dresses, they was all dolled up in black. And then there was a sound. First, I thought it was my engine giving out. Some with the lifters about the tune of it really loud. Click, click, click. Kept getting louder, so I knew I had to get out of there. I'd be stuck till they sent a tow. And I was already behind schedule, not to mention the unsettling present company. All of them were hard to see, given that it was night. I didn't want to hit none of them. But then I realized they were making it a little bit easier for me as they were avoiding my headlights. And that left me with just enough of a gap to get the hell out of there. And I was pulling out onto the road, and I had just enough light from the inside of my cab to make one out. I put my foot on the gas, and here's where I interrupted him again and said, wait, you saw one of them up close? What did it look like? I don't matter now, he told me before continuing on. Now I'm finally back on the road, back toward Austin, that is. Found that it didn't take long for the noise to stop. That's when the smell started. That was me a half a second there. When I opened the windows for some fresh air, it was anything but. Ain't no outhouse's side of perdition smell half as bad as that Texas breeze. So I rolled them up, and that's when the clicking started again. I looked out and saw all those little turnoffs, all those tombstones, rock patches, half-formed bushes. I had a pack of them waiting for me, just waiting. Like my truck was a runaway groom. Like if they stared at me long enough, I'd stop again. Good thing there wasn't nothing left in me because I was scared shitless. I tried to get somebody on the CB, anybody really, but all I got was static. Well, not just static. There was something in it. Like one of those stations was trying to reach through the waves and give me comfort, except whenever I adjusted it, all I got was that damn clicking pumping out over my speakers. I didn't even want to call my dispatcher just to hear her voice, but phones ain't never got no signal in Texas. I just shut the radio off and set into the silence and stand. Every now and again, I felt my hand go for the radio. Pretty soon, it didn't even need to be on though. That clicking rattled my windows and door handle. At one point, I just jammed a cigarette filter into the lock and stopped it from moving. Got my eyes on the road. Didn't dare look at the sides now, because when I did, that rattling started up stronger and stronger. I ended up counting the brakes and the yellow lines like rosary beads. I was cursing the engine. I was cursing having to make this drive in the middle of the goddamn night. I was cursing the fear that made me leave without wiping my ass. I'm sure as death, taxes, and the Texans never make it to the Super Bowl, that sun rose. And I looked up over the sides of the road, and the figures had disappeared. Click and stopped. The smell didn't die down much, but I figured that was just me. A few hours later, I rolled into the depot, got paid, and asked my boss to take me out to Texas. I haven't seen or heard anything like that since. Well, that ain't exactly true. I did hear something after I retired, but that cost me another beer. I smiled as politely as I could and told the old man that one story was enough for me tonight, and with that he tilted his full beer back without so much as taking a breath or letting a drop fall from the corners of his mouth. He kept drinking until he put the empty bottle back down in the bar, and he walked back over to the corner table. My friend finally did show up around 10, that's when we ordered our drinks. Something knocking, and then there was a knocking somewhere in the back of the bar. We assumed it was someone trying to get in through the staff exit. Happens more than a few times, but then it stopped and started again, like somebody was bloodying their knuckles against the metal of the door. After a few minutes of that droning, the bartender finally went to go check. He opened the door and saw an empty alleyway. The knocking didn't stop until he closed it again. It started to get late, and I hadn't been looking at the clock, watch being broken and all. I'm not the drinker I used to be. I see it gets broken a lot sooner than I would have during my high school drinking career, but that's when the sound tore through the bar like nobody's business. A terrible, echoing scream, like glass etching a memory of pain on glass. I'll never forget that scream. When it finally did stop, the bar went silent. No creaks of rickety chairs, no taps of bottle against tabletops, not even a whisper. That's when the smell hit us. Most of us covered our faces. The bartender shoved the corners of a dish rag into his nose that made his skin stretch. And he finally worked up the courage to go check what happened. Big fellow, this guy, always has lots of tattoos, beard, little tan from working whatever day job he could find. Came out of that bathroom about half a minute later, white as uncut bleach and clear bottle. Walked over to the phone behind the bar. His hand shook and tried to put the 3 numbers in. Hopefully, still hadn't said a damn word. Tension in that fog, the bar was so thick, couldn't even see. He only started clearing when he started talking. He had to repeat himself twice before realizing no one could understand him with a dish rag in his nose. He then quietly told the 911 dispatcher that somebody had died in the bar's bathroom. He gave the operator the address, placed his phone back on the receiver, and emptied everything he had in him in the garbage can and smacked his head on the way down. People started clearing out before I moved around to help him. My friend bolted the second he heard the word dead, and that left me to get the bartender conscious enough to drink some water and sit upright. After I helped him outside, I looked back at the empty bar, and back then I had a little bit of a morbid curiosity. So I decided to take a look. To this day, I wish I did. There's a bit of water leaking out from underneath the door. The light was off. Against my better judgment, turned it on, took a few steps in. There was a low pool on the floor. For a bathroom, I thought it was a little funny that the water was clean. The reflection on that water was so clear I could see which ceiling tiles needed replacing, but my eyes started going up. That's when the clear gave way to a deep reddish brown. There he was, a creepy old man. His skin dropped around his ankles like a pair of overalls that needed washing. Chipped where his veins and muscles should be. I covered my mouth and made my way out. When I turned to leave, I could see them in the mirror. A dozen or so of those shapes, each coated in this tacky asphalt black film that dripped down into the water. They were all gathered around the man, skinning him like a deer with their teeth and nails. One turned its head toward me, showed a long line of teeth. No mouth, just teeth. Anyway, thanks for the beer. We have clear sounds for doing.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to be reading parts of my thesis, formerly called Urdid, and now lacuna, as in unfilled space or interval, blank space, pit, depression, or in Spanish, lacuna, cradle, crib, or place of birth. I am preparing to cross the great waters once again. Ominous then, but now it furthers to cross the great waters. Before crossing the great waters, I have dreams, nightmares, fantasies. I see the fox. I see his mischievous smile, crooked from the coke, and his tail gets wet, and the waters don't further anymore. I see him saying, "It's okay." Suddenly, I am lethargic, and for a long time, I am lethargy. I am a tree that watches as someone carves on my trunk or breaks off a leaf, and how the wind bends me until one day I give in and release my roots from the earth, making no sound. Anchors replace roots as I transform into a ship, one crossing the great waters again. In oblivion, I find the fox. I imagine him. I see him everywhere in the port I am headed toward, even though he is not there. He is probably not even a fox anymore, but I feel him as I swim, and the force pushes me underwater, and I believe that by almost drowning is how I learned to swim. Laguna, descendants, English, lagoon, body of encircled water. Bogota, Spanish, portion of a time that has been entirely forgotten, usually obliterated by intoxication. Portion of a life that has gone underwater, dissolving. Portion of a truth that has been hidden, corroding at veracity. Portion of a cloth left behind after a parade to the cemetery. Portion of a dream that is felt but cannot be seen by the awoken. Portion of a life disjointed from the rest, its existence questioned. Portion of reality that seems fantastical. Portion of a nightmare that leaves only night sweats. Portion of agony erased by the mind. Portion of stuttering. Portion of speech that spills out unawares. Ivory tower. Touch of ivory makes all the black hairs on my body stand on end, cold like reading all the Greeks and Latins, names that surround the sanctified body, a skin of canon. Devour these books, these are the bodies of knowledge. There are no others worth this weight. We've made sure of it. Guiltfully eating the host, chewing, works. Swallow, avoiding confession for so long. I was Greek and I was Latina, my name was Philomena. I drank from the strange brew with the Corinthians as background music. Beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. My skirt, the only one at topology class, lipsticked at that. In time, I would be spit out from the places that couldn't stomach me. Your writing will one day match the intelligence it too frequently masks, was the feedback I got, and I wept, even if I would wake up, makeup still on, same outfit as the mixer the day before, party to oblivion, life a lagoon, a distraction, edges of memory blurred, blunted brittle bits of self scattered, one avenue to the next, chiseled right off, sharp edges not sharp enough, sharpened on the 6th floor library room with Greek bro snorting white powder, cocaine, not coca. Coca was a plant that filled lungs with glyphosate. Cocaine is rivers of blood where the map tugs me. But who cares if we're having fun up here in the West? For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know, even as also I am known. When I say my body is a topography of pain, I mean I have carved out the pain on my body, or it has carved itself. A 30-centimeter scar down my back from where it was realigned, curved to straight back to the Euclidean plane, where I understood what the white coats did not, that my increasing S problem was all the weight I was carrying, not like Emma with the mattress on campus, but words. When I was a child, I spake as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a woman, I put away childish things. There was a spine with pages and a map and description of each mark. The places had people, events. I cannot recall. I roamed barefoot in search of the notes ripped out in antiquity. What can remain? My copy of Ovid was covered in mold. I left it behind in my freshman dorm. Love never faileth, but whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. Whether they be tongues, they shall cease. Whether there be knowledge, it shall vanish away. And I'm going to end with Arresto. Que lo que añoras de empuje se cura a perpetuidad. Thank you. Up next, we have Kenneth Reveis.
NextWords. Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Matthias. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Alicia. Thank you, Tisa. Thank you, Ernie. Gabrielle, thank you. Nina, thank you. Daniel, Andrea. The asset learns again. This is a monologue. The asset learns again. Asset. I was so used to holding people in my arms in what I thought was care, and in my thoughts, and in my vision, and in my throat they lived, rent-free in my house of quiet usage. Since assuming we all spoke the blue language of potentiality, alone I had inherited in my asset. You know what, I'm not gonna read this. I'm good. But thank you. Next is Sino Scott.
Hard to follow that up, huh? All right. Here we go. Thank you all. I won't listen to this. That group got exotic mantle compositions. Can you hear me from here? Yeah. Xenolith, alien stone, embedded. Thawing magma, eroding petrogeny, pseudo as crystal, pure as carbon, suspended or serpentinized, kimber light. Breaking blue ground, sounding off insults to the tune of the ire, adunas, police boys, patrolling Maleka, opposing laughter, Molokisi, bastardized by De Beer, making Arbecht mocked fry for the Hammer Boys, homeboys, gang mates, Gowata, to reduce to a senseless thing. Cannibal, urine, behaving ourselves badly, but in the minds only. They keep going because they are in want. To pay tithe. Another itchy palm on this sweaty Sunday, swaggering, vacillating, then another monstrous clamp against each your vagi, forcing constriction and its opposite, palpating you until the produce of your peristalsis offers a swatch of dyed cotton to a wicker basket. And to pay tax. Another itchy palm on this first Friday, fattening. Filching then a mirage of thirst amidst all your hunger. Bringing glucose and ketone bodies bleeding you. Till the course of your coagulate careens an alloy of 60 minutes to a molten mouth. The last poem I'll read has many titles. It begins this way. The disease of more, M-O-O-R, the disease of more. Ickery, adjective, meaning pertaining to chattel, especially living chattel, living to sell itself. And these corporate behemoths, we call them chains. Hung our heads and perked up seldom. Seldom this gravity which was to have been pulling pushed. Dashboard debris cluttered this iron cage our body hath bespoken. So incensed, we were smudged ickery. Incensed, so we were ickery manufactured. Just for sense, we in some ickery plant. Though that metronomic revolver knew rot was passing for rhythm, we clapped away. Frog mothers uprooted lily pad acopolis tethered us to it. Soon to be moot, bugle boy, that blue-hatted figment so incensed, we were ickery, or ickery manufactured again. Assuming capital's loose backswing, you born for, clamoring knock-kneed for the callous hand-me-down, Bessie to Bessemer, approximate AWOL ickery, ain't it finna be, it was, never is, ickery, is it? Wherefore incensed, art ought to be with, you demanded. Ickery, all we ever imagined was could. Ickery was a hymn which we hummed, what ain't humdrum, hymn sang it all for tomorrow. Snipped ribbon for an ickery plant, preferred surnames at roll call, classic. Got barracked near half-mast, it enlisted us. Always already unsure the ends by what means to see. I tango too. Foaming for the motor mouth conveyor for a measly 15, mind's eye to crop out the floor warden and swing time throat, eroding a jigger of pop. And I was, who is Orphean, despite the liar, my reflection, another foundling foe, shingling my roof at once to rust unrusting, letting a tear fall. Was it enemy? The I am. Decay's corner office to get here, the brick burned up, boring being to be not so brick, lending lobe to the tinnitus time clock, drone sick, pistons pop, minutes, mind. Matter of fact, our asses factoried and lined up, sore from the kicking, punching life into the clock. Clock was our life now. Thus was our time no time. Time too we pawned off, all for the yield. They say it ain't about the yield, and thus we never yield. And thus we were ore for minutes mind gone, gilded the bandage of a wage. Insofar contraband time became. The point of having been here in the free market? The point of having been here, sold? To have been ore was air sats, no neutered dick to soothe us horse, sifted down to a single flake, all aura, no aura. Filament, hollow out, if these was bodies, the bodies we dragged, stole compensation, in vitro truth, oft off quota insolent, in vitro tax eschew for show, all but noosed up from the nape, all but noosed away, I saw some light. Thus is our time no time. I know it must have read thine more than time I must have read. May as well have read, don't look. I remembered mostly to myself. The steers of the guild prophets, their purpose became us. The tomb traded torrent testicles, rhapsodizing in a rhizomatic itch, titular surrogate, steal away toil, steal away resist. Thus was our time, no time, me, no telling. Telling is an ante on red velvet, what isn't? We named this living even so, we dead. The dead, spooking amid the undertow, nobodies know a body's never not a cipher, nobody not obliged. We still built it, bled it, thus remains your say or see. To no end, they add infinitum. Fingering C notes we were o'er infinitum. Infinitum day undone swarth, maligning our skin to boot, lungs thick with soot, palms callous with catgut. Ashen gold dug us up. Thank you.
Next we have Nikki Ochoa.
Tonight, I pull myself out of a hat. When I see you staring back at me, when I see you staring back, getting from the apple tree, getting from where it's at, better than So, I've been hopping around the forest a lot recently, and I'm just charmed by all the kudzu-covered trees and interesting creatures I meet there. And we have these discussions about what is true freedom and what is real expression and how can we get there and stay there? Is it the bird flying through the sky? But these creatures, they've told me, fuck the bird. Shoot that shit right out of the sky. It's not about any Marxism of freedom anymore. It's what we're creating in every single present moment, and everything else is completely beside the point. Neptune in a parking lot. The monkey's first taste of citrus stings its brain awake. You know me like a guard dog, attuned to the street sequence of sprinklers. We flip through any page and play with heaven all day long. This is called apple bobbing. I looked in the mirror, despite instructions. Double action, reverse black magic. I could turn my body into a convincing dream and hold you for all time. But what power is truly held if you have to stand in line for it? In the deepest caverns of my fantasy, we dig below, listening to the pipes and footsteps above. We pronounce our body's great magnetism, and a 45-minute Mylar strip runs in Technicolor before us. Let us lie flat on the concrete, covered in sheepskin, and remember our past lives together. Mother says I'm rusty. You're attending to geese. You are burning a log. You're riding in the Great Plains. I'm just lucky to watch. Let me wash your black hair. Let us make a great promise that we will feed our children motor oil so they might carry our tradition. Okay, hit it, Scott. One capsule of silver jubilee, and I'm a twinning pony in the Texas heat. Once I learned money was for spending, the morning glories always opened. I thank each one before climbing into my jalopy and poisoning the earth. It's a casino-worn loop station's rule. The the checks and balances that make the deep contour of Jupiter algorithmically perfect. As the sun's solar zenith unlocks the third hour of waiting in your truck on the Mexicali borderline, I fell asleep. No offense to your grand offerings. The light just so peacefully mixed with the smell of gasoline and your worn out passenger seat. Heavy-handed comfort. Highly vulnerable kidney-shaped desire and barbed wire fence. Everyone I know is billboards on the I-10 East. Using myself as a sundial. Magic out of engines, fire, and rock. Quantum entanglement at the thrift store. Morning cutting the corner of my eyes like crystals. Today's sunrise flavor stunned a corporate lawyer to make light and plead. Your tax dollars hard at work. Grease bucket, are you going to tell me your dark secret? Or are you going to make me guess? Thank you for showing us that dying is okay. There are worse things. My swamp ash, you are not roadworthy, and you fucked up the sonic geometry in this bitch. God says you have to attend the infomercial session before ascending to the golden mansion of enlightenment, and the exit test is all open answer questions. I could lay in a field and let it all wash over me. Could you? Or do you have to refresh the feed? Some plans are made to fall through. Thanks for asking anyway. But I'll stay home, desperately putting out words in a silky magazine to fulfill a prophecy. Who told you that time moves forward and when? You were frightened even though we were triumphant and invincible in our giddiness. As the outskirts of sleep remove the day, city fingertips lay where river deltas twist back to the center of your palm. Burning like a star through the Anza Borrego desert. How could I reciprocate such majesty? You're a pillar, and I quiver. Lucky me, the sun also sleeps.
Hey everyone, thanks for being here. This is the first poem to the thesis that I wrote. The thesis is called Lavender Asphalt Senpasuchi Ash. This is the beginning poem, another freeway poem in Ars Poetica written near the 710 for you. This is another freeway poem. This is another highway poem. This is another poem about a road. This is another poem about not Natalie and about mothers. This is a poem about mothers separated from their children by ice. This is a poem about cages, about mothers locked in cages, about fathers locked in cages, about parents locked in cages, about children locked in cages, about locking myself in stanzas and calling it a closet, a tiny room. This is a poem about cages around a goddamn lake. Where do you put the houseless when you take away their less, when you unshelter their home? This is a poem about Natalie sighing past midnight because letters from the Department of Justice keep piling and her father's smile is still not safe. This is a poem about mothers locked inside 6 a.m., closing their sleep lids with lights on in Adelanto, California, carefully holding their children inside their cornea. This is another poem about Jenny losing Julie in a sea of love before having a chance to meet her. Come with me, my love, and I'll show you where I drive when I taste heart lumped inside my throat, trying to find Julie inside mixtapes, playlists, lyrics, tracks, on repeat, trying to find Julie underneath the overpass, somewhere tangled in cul-de-sac or in freeway junction. This is another poem about rushing home. My brother tells me, drive safe, zero traffic, 78 on the 90 and searching for my abuelito's voice as if wiping my mother's tears would break like red anguish. This is another freeway poem, another poem about mothers losing fathers. My father rushing towards stone streets or else Michoacan avenidas. His mother won't recall his face most days. And the day she left him, stained his dream tears, puddled salt wounds, his face, child slack and lost. This is another freeway poem, another poem about fathers losing mothers. This is a poem about mothers losing their children for selling loose cigarettes. This is a poem about nicotine-drenched roads. This is a poem about crying for a mother into pavement. This is a poem about murder for $20, news media upset at ACAB, cardboard signs, and brick-shattering corporate Wilshire and Fairfax. This is a poem about cops tear-gassing us and coloring our iris blood red. This is another poem about car crashes bruising my ribs until I understood what anaphora meant because I kept crashing inside your fault line, searching for the ghost of you, because pain is everything, because pain is everything, because pain is everything, because I keep trying to shake your fingertips off my aphasia. This is another poem about Black and brown kids knowing alliteration through the sound of bullets ringing in the cities of Linwood, Watts, and Compton. So we scribble strophes on the soles of our mother's feet, and we color Tonka on traffic signs and pastel acrylics. This is another freeway poem, silenced not by carbon dioxide, but by asphyxiation, learning refrain while kissing concrete. Please, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. This is a poem about Joseph crashing inside his mother's arms before her lungs collapse, her body vanishing. I can hear her voice, bioluminescent, withering, dissipating in ocean breath. Joseph tells me he'd eat her cancer if he could. A beautiful drowning, crashing waves near the South Bay, catatonic daydreams past dizzy 1:10 a.m., torrent streets gray and phosphorus, skeletal cavity driving towards half brightness of her sleep. Clouded graphite bereavement, traffic light glare. This is not an allegory. This is another freeway poem. Alexi tells me my pain is temporary, as if I'm not suffering upon suffering upon suffering. So I swallow antistrophes. On mornings when I hear my abuelito's voice inside Chalino Sanchez lyrics, because pain is everything. His laugh lost inside Linwood Avenues, because pain is everything. Reverberating voice tucked inside my optic nerve. I can see it if I'm quiet, because pain is everything. Who am I hurting writing this? Is this my diaphanous death? I swear I'm just trying to feel something. And the scrawl blasted on freeway concrete is poetry. Same way the light that glares on raw sewage in the flower district is poetry. Same way food trucks appear as stanzas on Olympic or La Brea, that too is poetry. Same way a chain link fence can't keep us out is poetry. Same way the crescendo of an engine past midnight during a takeover is poetry. Same way the angel on Broadway and 7th, shirtless, open feet to the ground, singing street songs is poetry. Same way you and all your sin and glory and all your confusion or rhapsody are poetry. I swear, I'll rearrange all of this A, B, to feel something, fingering the rhythmic plump of heavy words, call it a night boulevard elegy, wrap it in neon plastic. This is a poem about collapse, Abecedarius actually briefly chasing daydreams, escaping finality, pirouetting on the 110 to my friends, forecast liminal brightness tucked inside shadow play, southbound and lost. Los Angeles is a burning palm tree, and I keep choking on raining soot. I can't breathe in a city wrought with ghosts. This is another poem about driving the 710 in pitch and blemishing my Sejura, before reaching for another cigarette and hearing the daybreak, before finishing the mixtape you made, crossing city lines, and wondering if I'll hear Julie's voice in undertones crossing city lines, and misreading exit signs for exit strategies crossing city lines. And I realize this is just another freeway poem about crossing city lines, so I drive further. Thank you. Next, Josh Wolford. Give it up.
Thanks everyone who contributed today. A little bit of context. I'm reading from a series of fictional journal entries about someone who moves to New York in the late 90s. September 2nd, 1999. Yesterday, while I was unpacking boxes, a tennis ball fell to the ground, bounced a couple of times, and then it rolled really quickly to the corner of the room and just stayed there against the wall. I walked outside across the street to take a look at the building, and I noticed that the facade looked more like a rhombus than a rectangle. The windows were parallel with the ground, but the roof is kind of slanting over to the right, and doing this thing where all the buildings on my side of the street, they also seem to be starting to slant, like a domino effect or something. How long until they all just spill over onto the avenue around the corner? How long until I spill over? Is it possible for a bed to slide towards the wall and deposit someone right out the window? Is it possible to die this way? Anyway, I was standing across the street and I was watching people coming in and going out of these crooked buildings, all dressed up like they were going to work or to the bank or whatever it is that people do every day. They were holding coffees or dragging rolly bags as if nothing was wrong, as if they didn't know that they're living some kind of crooked life. I just stood there for a while until this guy behind me who was lifting weights in his garage asked, "What the fuck are you looking at, bro?" September 10th, 1999. Rats live around here. Rats live all around me. The few people that I know in the city, they have mice or roaches or both. It's one of the things that people in New York constantly talk about. We only have rats, but I almost wish that it was mice or roaches because rats seem worse somehow. Roaches have been around for however million years. They have a stake in things. They have evolutionary respect, at least. But the rats, they're awkward and clumsy, and they don't try to conceal themselves or anything. They're not scared of us, I'll give them that. But maybe it's just that they don't care about anything, not even their own survival. They are surviving, but they don't even know what they're doing counts as survival, eating and finding warm places and all that. They just act on instinct. It means nothing. Yesterday in the kitchen, a rat couple was having sex on the toaster and they wouldn't stop until they finished. I tried smacking the floor with a broomstick so that they'd run away, but they kept going. When I asked Dakota, my roommate, how long the rats had been around, and if it was normal to find them having sex in the kitchen, He just told me that he had no idea, and then he disappeared back into his room and shut the door. There's a hole in the ceiling above my bed that the rats sometimes fall through at night. I wonder how they find their way back. They must be doing something worthwhile up there in the ceiling. I nailed a sheet over the hole to catch the rats as they spill out. It seems to be working, but eventually they crawl off the edge and fall down regardless, but at least not directly onto my mattress. The sheet's a kind of hammock for them, a rat canopy above me while I dream. September 28th, 1999. It's not a true story. I couldn't sleep last night. There were these two loud and obnoxious drunks outside my window breaking bottles and singing Dancing Queen all night. It was just going on for hours like they'd never heard another song, like they'd only heard one damn song in their entire lives, Dancing Queen. They just sang it, repeated it over and over again, repeated and repeated like it was all they knew. The thing is that I actually like that song, but now I'd be happy to never hear it again. I wonder about living in this new place and questioning if suffering like this is really necessary. Back home, at least no one sang outside my window at night, and I could get a decent night's sleep. All I could hear were cats and heat, and surging power lines out of the window. But that's better than drunk singing, breaking bottles, and the sun eventually washing out the curtains, reminding me that soon I'll need to start work. My job is getting through the day. It doesn't pay anything. December 8th, 1989. I was walking Taki's dog this morning, who I've known to be a pretty agreeable dog. Completely fine as far as dogs go, quiet, well-behaved, totally satisfactory. It's a retriever mixed with some other bullshit. The dog's always smiling, even when Taki's gone out for the night without announcing when she'll be coming back. When she does this, the thing just sits by the door, smiles, and waits. Anyway, I was walking the dog and we were approached by this guy with a woman and a toddler. The guy asked if his toddler could pet the dog. I'd seen a dog romp around with this chihuahua at the dog park the week before, and everything seemed fine. So I said, sure, go ahead, it's friendly. Look, it smiles. So the guy says, okay, because if it bites her, I'll snap its neck. What the hell is that about? He was talking like a psycho, and I realized that I was afraid of this guy. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything, and the toddler reached out and started to pinch folds of the dog's skin and fur. So the dog's lip began to curl. But then it relaxed back down into a smile, and all was well, and I realized that no necks would be getting snapped this time. I was so goddamn relieved. I was sweating right through my shirt and getting all itchy, and I started shaking. The whole thing happened, then it was over, and we all walked away in different directions. Dandelions in the storm, pigeon feathers on the third rail. It was like we never even met or talked to these people at all. This kind of thing happens all the time in New York. Back at Taki's building, I realized we were locked out. She still hadn't gone home and still hadn't given me the spare key that I'd been promised. She's always saying something about me needing to do more and needing to earn it. But anyway, the dog and I sat there in the stoop for hours, the thing smiling ironically, until the shadows shifted 90 degrees and the angled sun tried to give a makeover to a rusted out Cadillac with its white hot light. It finally gave up and sank like a dense brick behind a row of buildings. The dog began to cry and continued its thoughtless smiling in the dark. And I swore that I could hear a marble rolling around in the space where its brain should have been. Bone on glass, glass on bone. December 16th, 1989. After work last night, me and Andrew, my work friend, and some of the other guys from the shop, we walked over to the bridge. Not the recently demolished one, but another one, on the other side of the neighborhood whose streets are lined with burned out cars and graveyards. The bridge crosses over a canal that rages with crisscrossing ribbons of multicolored sewage. It runs right through the cemetery. There are these long lines of graves and severe lines on each side. They go on forever, no end to it. It's a great view. I guess you can find beauty almost anywhere if you have an eye for it. The wind carries the stench of sewage for miles across neighborhoods. You ride the subway for a stop or two, and the smell is still piggybacking you, clutching behind your ear, hanging on to silly inside of your nostrils. You'd swear bodies were still rotting there in their graves, in their neat rows, only centimeters beneath the dirt, returning back home to earth, their souls floating up to heaven. Geez, sorry, I'm getting sidetracked again. Truth be told, I don't even believe in heaven. So we're sitting there on the bridge, kicking our legs around off the side of the section where you can actually dangle them right off the edge, right over the canal. You can drop pennies and watch them spin, reflecting moonlight through the dark until they disappeared with a muted splat on the surface. Andrew was on my left side, the other guys on my right, and we're all laughing at some joke when I felt the wind pull up my left shoulder. I was shocked when I realized that Andrew had disappeared, but only for a second. He'd fallen, but he didn't hit the water, or die. I could hear him laughing underneath us somewhere in the dark, and I realized that he'd fallen onto some type of scaffolding that no one had even noticed because it was hidden in the shadow of the bridge. I couldn't really make him out, just heard him. And I saw the end of a lit cigarette off his lips, still burning in the dark, still smoking, still alive with pleasure. And I know I've said that I don't believe in heaven, but it's the kind of thing that might just make you believe in something if you didn't already. You might think that God walked around on the streets, brown-bagged it, loitered, key lines into BMWs, caught the turnstile, rode the trains around all night for no reason, even hovered over bridges, over graveyards, over polluted canals with careless guys covered in sawdust on the outskirts of cities really late at night. I don't, but still you might. All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for coming, everybody. Can we give a round of applause to all of the graduates? Please join us outside for the reception, and thank you so much again for coming.
Yes.